called Emergence. And all attendees of this event and all
Please welcome back to the stage our conference co-chairs, Emily Fox and Ricardo Rocha.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 3 of KubeCon CloudNative Con North America and the last set of keynotes. I see everybody made it this morning after a very late night with a lot of partying. The events team would like to solicit feedback from all attendees of this event and all previous CNCF events as they begin planning for 2023 while continuing to manage the outfall of the global pandemic. And as such, we ask all of you to be on the lookout for a survey in 2 weeks. It's important, and your feedback will drive and shape the future of these events, not only for you, but for others that attend these conferences.
That's right. We thank you in advance for filling out that survey and hope you had a great second day yesterday of the event. Let's kick things off with our first keynote for today. Our first presenter is our very own co-chair, Frederick Kaut. Frederick is a cloud-native infra and security enterprise architect. He's on the SPIFFE steering committee and co-founded Gitbomb. Today, he's going to talk to us about the long-term future of cloud-native applications, their implications on infrastructure, and how we can rise together to meet the demand. So please welcome Frederick Kaut.
Cool. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and thank you for making it an amazing KubeCon. So, before we jump into the topic, there's something really short I want to jump into. And first, this really is about the community. Everything you see here, like everyone that is working on all these projects, it's at the bottom we have people that are here. So, like, first, round of applause for everyone who is here, who is part of the community, and for everyone who is not here, who is unable to attend. And one other thing as well is that you'll see a photo of this. I'll actually make a point of this pretty soon. But if you are also in need of, like, if you're feeling burnt out, if you need help, like, please reach out to somebody. Please look after yourself. Like, this is not a sprint. It's a marathon, and it's something that we want to make sure everyone is doing things they can, not only for the best of the projects, but also for the best of yourselves. So make sure that you are also looking after yourself. Drink lots of water, get lots of sleep. Make sure that you're enjoying yourself and help make it a safe space, not only for yourself, but for others. So again, thank you. So let's jump into it. There's this concept that we have called emergence. And so emergent system, so it's when you have a system where the individual components that make up the system do not actually have the properties of the system as a whole. They have unique behaviors that arise as part of that system. The first example is you have this ant. So you have a flood that comes along, the ants all cluster together, and now they float. And last I checked, ants don't tend to float very well and survive. But in this scenario, they gather together. You also have all of the pheromones that they put out. So like the individual, like how do they go off and gather and act as a whole? Like they have entire behaviors that are not actually encoded into the ants. But when they get together, they actually have a set of behaviors that they act like in unison. Also, I mentioned about self-care. Remember, there's some ants at the bottom of these things that are actually latching onto the grass. And so if you're feeling burnt out, you're probably one of those ants. Pop up for air and ask for help and ask for somebody to help you with that task. So you also have another famous example, which are the cathedrals that you see here, where you end up with a bunch of termites coming together and they build up these really amazing structure. But specifically, there's a few properties that an emergent system has, which is there's no global control. There's not a single entity in the center that's like guiding everything and saying, you're gonna do this, and you're gonna do this, and you're gonna do this, and like mapping everything out. There's also, you couldn't even do it anyway because there's no global observability. You don't have the ability to see everything. There are things going on in projects. Like I got a lot of visibility compared to many others. And I can tell you, I can only see the tip of the iceberg. I cannot see everything that is going on. And so, since there is no global observability, yet despite that, we still have a convergence. Where that convergence occurs, there's a given structure that arises out of it. And so, the system that has that structural behavior is not present in the individual components, and yet we still have this amazing, beautiful thing that comes up. There's also an emergent structure. So those are emergent behaviors, but you also have emergent structures where things get put together and welded. And so in this scenario, you have these ice crystals that have formed. And if you look at how water ends up working and how they all combine, like you can have these type of structures arise. And I also put this as a previous KubeCon, I believe it was 2019 Europe and I want to say Barcelona. But in this scenario, we have a whole economy of people. Like you are in here, you're part of an economy, you're part of a organization of people who every group is acting in different ways, and yet we still have all of these amazing things that come out that, as Priyanka described before, affect 7 million other people that people are depending upon. And this is one of the central places where you can come together and be a part of that story and help influence the direction. Again, not control, but to influence. And so, how do we influence then? We start with open standards. So, open standards drive commoditization, and we want to make sure we have the definition here. So, when we say commoditization, we don't mean commodification. So, commodification is where you're taking something that was like not sellable, and you make it sellable. In terms of commoditization, what we're looking at from this definition is something that anyone can use, that it's easy to access, that you can just pick up and start using. And so we want to focus specifically on open standards and specifically on the word open. So I know there's a lot of definitions that people tend to have. I tend to use the OSI definition of open in terms of open source. It's something that is accessible to everyone, something that is approachable, that like if I go and decide, hey, I want to go and use HTTP. There's no one there saying, no, you can't use HTTP because it's a closed standard. And this is super important because without these open standards are what drive the ability for people to consume, but it also represents a place where we can influence. And so as we move forward, that open standards ends up enabling emergence. Like we have IP and how much stuff is built on top of IP. We have HTTP, how much stuff is built on top of HTTP. In the CloudNative community, we have things like the Kube API. How does the Kube API end up affecting your ability to deploy or to build products on top of? So with open standards, like part of what we should be looking at is how can we make sure that we're putting into the properties that we're influencing the structure and then making the structure predictable on what the outcomes are likely to be, knowing that we're not going to control everything. It's that we shouldn't even try to control everything, but we should try to put things in a way that are flexible enough so that people can go and do interesting things, but we all converge back to a central location. So in this scenario, we're saying cloud native embraces open standards. And if you want to know what it means to be cloud native, I know we have the official term cloud native and all the talking about like tight loops and feedback loops and similar. But I would also argue that if the standards were not open, if people were not free to come and use it, we would not be here. We'd be having a very small trade show at the most if we were lucky. So the reason why we are so successful is because we have been working on building new, and even though they're not technically standards by the official definition, like there's no board there in some of them, and actually some of them do have boards now, but generally you start off with like, well, let's go in and find something we can work on that we can all come together and put a stake in the ground and say, this is where we're gonna start. It doesn't mean it gets ossified, but it's something that in time we can continue to build and rally around. So that means that if we're embracing open standards and we're thinking about how do we set things up so that everyone can access, so we get that diversity of people, diversity of ideas, at that point, we are embracing the concept of emergence, and embracing the concept that we can actually come together, we don't have to control everything. So like I mentioned, we are building standards. Like if you look at every single one of these things, even if you don't technically call it a standards, like they're protocols, like you have a Kubernetes API that says like, how can I go and deploy things? I have like the OCI that describes a variety of different things on how do I actually run an image or how do I package a container image. Things like CNI that control networking, gRPC. So like you have all of these different things that people are rallying around. And they're all also opportunities that if they're not going to be perfect. So part of it is these are some of the plays, not the only ones. This is a very small list of everything that we're doing, but part of the challenge is learning what's out there so that you can then learn not only just what you're doing, but you can learn from others who you're working with, and you can tie it back into what you're doing for those standards. And a really good example that I like to use in a scenario is with, like I do a lot of work with Spiffy, and Spiffy represents a path for how do we get identity where I set up my Spiffy identities for my workloads and another company might set up theirs. It gives the opportunity that I can consume their identities and I don't have to know anything about their internal infrastructure. We have something on the top. In the same way that I don't have to know anything about your infrastructure if I'm using HTTP, I can do a GET call on it, and it'll act in the way it's supposed to, which might be give me something, or maybe it tells me you're not authorized, but I'm gonna get something that's predictable. So with things like Spiffy, I'm able to get that identity across boundaries, and I can start reasoning about other entities, and that has massive implications. There's another thing to consider as well. It's not just about the technology. Like I said, it's about the people. And how many people here used to run infrastructure before you adopted Kubernetes? Like you're the person who has to run you're like the person who's part of the run book, and they say, okay, John, it's your turn to go and set up the script. John, Amy, it's your turn to go and set up the firewall. And something goes wrong. And so you have these really complex systems. And again, thank you for Duffy for having this conversation with me, because this has helped me set this up. And so part of what we have to look at is what are the human processes that we have? What are we changing? So everything that we put on our APIs has an implication on what happens in terms of our human processes, both positive and negative, because like I mentioned, a lot of people have burnt themselves out trying to manage these systems because there's not enough of us here. But at the same time, it also provides a path towards like, I can build an image and I can give you an image, and if you want to run it, there's nothing special you have to do in order to understand how my image works, at least from the infrastructure side. Like sure, from the application side, you have to learn something about how my image works, but that doesn't say anything about, I don't have to give you very much information because it's all in the specs, it's all in the standards, and we continue to improve on those so that everyone gains those capabilities. So many of these processes have been standardized through the Kubernetes API. So please, like whenever you're thinking about standards or you're thinking about like how do I build a protocol out, always think of the people. Think about how people are going to consume it. How is this going to affect the people who are going to be up late at night deploying your code out? I want to also make a prediction as well. So today, now that we've covered immersions and how the entire space is an emergent system and we're an emergent community, we can also think about where are we going next. And so if we take this as initial standard, one of the patterns that I'm seeing is we have a really clear definition on what an application is, and that continues to become more generic. And Kubernetes is an orchestrator. It is definitely one of the most popular ones. It is becoming commoditized. We have turnkey solutions for it. But at the same time, the applications themselves, they have different places where you may want to run. So there are teams over here who I've been working with who have been working on 5G edge computing. And they're trying to work out, how do I deploy my application so that actually lives close to you? Like maybe you're working in manufacturing and you're trying to control a robot. The latency to your cloud is too much, and so you have something close by. Or self-driving cars are often another example. You want something that's close by so that if you lose the link to your cloud environment, you still have something operational that's close by. So we have these applications that eventually we will start to schedule. We'll have a manifest. We'll have something we can describe. What are the requirements of the application? Then be able to deploy that application anywhere in the world based upon the properties that are there. If you need a GPU, you land you into an environment that has a GPU. If you're a WASM base system, then we have to make sure we land you into that correct area. And there's numerous places that today you can start to deploy against. So not only with Kubernetes and clouds and edge systems, we're also seeing CDNs actually starting to run workloads in their actual environments that land literally like within some scenarios within a kilometer of where you're at, depending on your location. And so we have a whole set of protocols that have been serving us well here in the cloud native. And I believe that we're able, if we are careful as a community and thoughtful with how this works, I believe that we can take it to the next level and set it so that instead of just being bound primarily to Kubernetes, we can actually make this so that it's something that is useful globally, that when my infrastructure, things that I'm working on connects into your systems, that we have those top-level APIs, those top-level systems. Of course, an escape hatch, because you sometimes need things that are not provided by those systems. But if we can get most of our environments to think in that specific way with uniform approaches or close to uniform approaches to this, and get down to better standardization, I think we can have something that's much bigger than just Kubernetes and Cloud Native and just what's within this community. So with that, this is the main point I want to make, is that the standards that we have, they will continue to evolve, and they will allow us to schedule anywhere to have that interaction where we can then predict, like we can then deploy to anywhere or any particular group based upon the needs of the application, rather than what was the system, what infrastructure was that system designed for. So with that, I want to thank everyone for your time, and have an amazing KubeCon.
All right, everyone. Our next presenter is John Morello, and he's joining us virtually. John is the Vice President of Product at Prisma Cloud. And today, he will go over some of the latest market requirements regarding attack vectors and help us learn about the anatomy of a cloud-native application security solution. Please welcome John Morello.
Hi, I'm John Morello. I'm the Vice President of Product for Prisma Cloud at Palo Alto Networks. I wanted to share with you today a little bit of an overview of what we observe as current market trends and what's driving those trends in the cloud security market, something that really impacts everybody here that's attending KubeCon. Some of the real drivers of what is shaping cloud security today are what you see on this slide. First and foremost is that even though many organizations, and particularly most of you that are at KubeCon here, are already well into your cloud migration journeys, that's only accelerating and increasing for a lot of organizations. One of the metrics that we've heard for a long time is about the portion of workloads that would be in the cloud. And it's looking now that within the next 2 years, more than 2/3 of the workloads that organizations run will be hosted in cloud providers. So a really significant shift over just the past 10 years from what was primarily an on-premises deployment model to one that's predominantly now within the public cloud. Secondly, is that applications are increasingly becoming containerized. Of course, that's why we're all at KubeCon, right? Is the fact that this revolution in the way that we package, deploy, and run applications is really shaping every aspect of software development and operational life cycles. And you can see that really at this point, almost everyone is utilizing containers. Now, of course, it doesn't mean that every application is containerized today, but what it does speak to is the fact that more or less every organization is embracing containerization, and that you can think that over the coming years, as applications are iterated upon or new applications are created, again, the vast majority of those will be done in a containerized format. At the same time, like the tech stack for cloud native applications is really continuing to evolve. Like containerization is a huge part of that tech stack, but it's not the only form factor that you see organizations using. Across the cloud, you have different kinds of kind of permutations of containerization. Things that are running like a classic container on top of a Kubernetes cluster, but also things that might be more specific to a given cloud provider that leverages more of their cloud provider specific technologies to allow you to run containers in a more on-demand fashion. Of course, you have serverless functions as well, both things that are based on open source frameworks, as well as serverless technologies that are proprietary to individual cloud providers. And increasingly, there's even overlap between those, where you can see serverless platforms that can take a container image and execute that on that serverless platform. And similarly, other technologies that kind of bring things the other way, where you can take a serverless function and execute that in a self-managed environment that might run on Kubernetes. And of course, all that is just something that runs on top of virtual machines. Virtual machines, of course, are not going anywhere. There's many millions of VMs that are out running right now in the cloud, and probably will be for some time in the future. So really, the reality for people is not that everything is moving to one particular form factor, but there's really diversity and evolution of many different form factors. And then finally, of course, I think most people would recognize that all this complexity, this rapid innovation, one of the side effects of it is it can make security more complex for people. They're dealing with new technologies, new form factors, and new deployment models that they may not be familiar with already. So organizations are faced with really three main primary kinds of challenges around cloud security. First is they have a lot more entities to secure. If you think back to the historical norms, when you were running an application that might be an in-tiered app, you might have a couple of VMs for the front end, a couple for the application tier, maybe a cluster database on the back end. But as you decompose that now into microservices, you may have many different containers that are running that front end, many different containers running the application tier, each of which is built as a microservice. And there's lots of benefits to that, of course, but the number of things that you have to think about security for is a lot higher. There's just more entities to deal with. Secondly, is that those entities are changing more quickly. One of the reasons why you're moving to this model in the first place is because you want to enable more rapid innovation. You want people to be able to iterate on those microservices more quickly. And because of that, the environments that you're having to secure are changing on a much more frequent basis than they used to. You're not deploying a VM and kind of running that VM for years on end. You're probably deploying new versions of your containerized images. You're running those maybe once a week, maybe once even a day you're changing them. So there's a lot more churn in that environment. And then finally, there's no one single cloud pattern. Most organizations have some kind of hybrid architecture, especially larger organizations have significant investments in on-premises infrastructure, private clouds. Most organizations are intentionally choosing to be multi-cloud, so they have options and take advantage of technologies that an individual cloud provider might do best and best of breed within the industry. And so it's not just about saying everything is one particular cloud provider, but you need to be able to protect across multiple different cloud providers, including yourself as a private cloud provider. So a lot more things, those things are changing a lot more frequently, and the places that they run are a lot more diverse than they used to be. So what do organizations really need to be able to meet the challenges of this, preserving like all the great things that are getting people to deploy containerized applications and move to microservices and cloud native architectures, but also continue to meet their security objectives and delivering the security outcomes they require? There's really kind of three fundamental areas that we see in the organizations that are most successful on, that these three areas are the ones that those organizations really focus on and have the best outcomes around. First is that they look at security not just as something that happens after you deploy the application, but it's something that's a full lifecycle thing. So not only is it not post-deployment exclusively, nor is it pre-deployment like in a shift left capacity exclusively. Instead, a good cloud native application security solution needs to protect and provide visibility and enforcement from code to deployment to test all the way into the cloud runtime environment. Secondly, that stack needs to be largely tech agnostic. In other words, it needs to be able to protect you in all those different diverse places that we talked about, private clouds, multiple different public cloud providers, as well as across all the different workload form factors where you might run that application. And then finally, it needs to be application aware. You don't want to have a security solution that doesn't have intelligence about the way the application works, because without that intelligence, you can't really protect the application layer traffic, the kinds of threats that are unique to.
The first, of course, being the Midwest, the thing that we really care about, food and pizza. So how is pizza declarative? Well, just think about it. You call up your favorite pizza place and tell them what you want. I want a large slice of pizza for delivery. You don't have to instruct the pizza joint how to, slap the dough, apply toppings, oven temperature, or even, provide the directions to your house. Instead, you can call and declare what you want and fill in any required information and expect that system, the pizzeria, to resolve your declared state and deliver a hot slice of heaven. So very different from, the imperative where you have to, call out everything. So while declarative systems like this have existed before cloud native became, more of a thing of what it is today, it's now much more, say, a fundamental part of everything that's being built and designed. Kubernetes is really built this way, and the vast majority of tooling built on top of it follows the same pattern.
Pop-up GFIO. Did you know that Michigan is arguably the pizza capital of the world? Sure, there's Chicago style, there's New York style, California Pizza Kitchen. All of these are great places with great styles of pizza. But in southeastern Michigan, Domino's, Cottage Inn, Little Caesar, Jets, all started here.
Now, outside of pizza, it wouldn't be a talk about Michigan and Detroit if we didn't talk about cars. They kind of go hand in hand.
I'd like to interject for a moment. What people commonly call a seatbelt is actually the three-point seatbelt, or also known as the CIR Griswold restraint. All right, with that meme out of the way, let's talk about microservices. You might not think it, but the seatbelt is an interesting concept in this regard. It's a combination of materials and manufacturing processes that, when installed properly, come together to make an invaluable safety tool. These individual components, the belt, the tongue, and the buckle, are all manufactured separately, but they follow a certain specification. Improvements to the belt don't actually require any changes to the buckle or the tongue. So long as the seatbelt API is adhered to, they can come together and function properly. That definitely seems like an example of a microservice in the physical world. And another fun story, the three-point seatbelt, was originally engineered at Volvo. Once patented, they realized that this wasn't some marketing ploy or a selling feature. It was a critical piece of safety equipment. So they opened up the patent for anyone to use and for the betterment of all. And that also does kind of sound familiar.
That sounds a little like open source. So now that we've talked about seatbelts, let's go back to cars. So just like cloud-native applications are very complex beasts. In fact, the modern car is a giant interconnected system of microservices. Many cars today have upwards of 150 microprocessors, not to mention all their various sensors and other telemetry systems in them. That's not even really taking into account like the new EVs, which are essentially one giant computer to begin with. Really, it's a complex distributed system that is dynamically responding to the demands that the user and the environment are putting on it. So while doing that, it's also trying to judge dozens of different things, maximizing traction, and of course, balancing fuel economy and performance. So similar to that in Kubernetes, when the load on your application increases, like a seasonal spike for retailers, the cluster can respond through things like the horizontal pod autoscaler, the vertical pod autoscaler to do the same. So just like your car, listening to the various telemetry from your application, it can scale to right size up or down to balance the load. You can also tune it, like flipping on sport mode or going all out for max performance. Think like running heavy high-performance computing workloads. You can allocate more resources up front for a faster response, more power, fuel economy, be damned.
Gotta go fast.
So yes, there are a lot of moving parts, and yes, it is more complex, but that gives you a lot of flexibility in being able to customize, the thing, Kubernetes cars, to meet your needs.
And we can't talk about cars without talking about assembly lines. In the early days of the automotive industry, the need to churn out more cars led Ford to adopt the assembly line pattern. William Pa Clan suggested having a station to focus on a single assembly task before the in-progress car would move to another specialized station. And it was super effective. As car assembly got faster, Ford actually ran into a bottleneck with paint drying in time. For the next station, They limited their available paint until a new lacquer innovation came along.
That kind of sounds a little bit like some tech debt and a duct tape fix.
Exactly.
All over.
But now, if you walk into a modern automaker's factory, you'll see, for better or worse, significantly less people and significantly more automated machines. What people are doing there is usually monitoring the automation lines. That kind of sounds familiar. Car assembly is a perfect physical analog for software engineers being pushed to ship software as fast as possible. A need to ship cars out of a factory faster led to streamlining processes and automation. And from pressure like that came innovation. I remember in ye old days, we specialized in trying to ship core components of our software, think like a basic PHP app, and making them run in production by hand. As automation ramped up, less people became involved in, making them run, and more people became involved in doing things like monitoring CI jobs and debugging why builds failed. Even now, these processes are becoming more automated, although there is an argument to be said about automation bloat. Now we ship software with Dockerfile and YAML instead of worrying about things like dependencies or an execution environment.
Dependencies do still matter.
Dependencies do still matter. But just as automation became the norm in the automotive industry, automation is a de facto standard in the cloud-native world when shipping a cloud-native application. And yes, Fago. Hopefully everyone enjoyed Fago this week in the vendor room. I know I did. But what do Fago and Ford have in common? Well, both start with the letter F. Also, both are household names here in southeastern Michigan and Michigan in general. And they were both formed in Detroit in the early 1900s. Fago was formed in 1907, and Ford was formed in 1903. Fago is so predominant here, for Easter, I had an aunt that would baste her holiday ham in Fago Red Pop. It was actually good. It was actually good, but. All right, so brief show of hands. Who here calls that soda? Who calls it pop? Who would call it cola? Anything else? Coke. So ultimately, we're talking about a carbonated beverage. That's the definition. And we have more than 4 names for it. Now imagine you're trying to describe a problem with a cloud-native application to someone that has no experience with one. You'll be speaking a foreign language talking about pods and network policies and bleh. This is why we need a common reference language that everyone can rally around. There are community efforts, such as the CNCF glossary, which can help beginners by being a decent reference. And also, there are open source contributors writing, maintaining, and translating the tech docs for us. And these tech writers make open source accessible, and they are truly the unsung heroes.
100%.
100%.
So that brings us to our next thing. Detroit versus everybody. As I'm sure many are aware, Detroit isn't looked upon as a great place. With the history of Detroit, what it's been through between riots, recessions, corruption, despair, it's kind of unsurprising.
And our football team, but anyway.
Those that live here think the moon of it.
Yep.
And so the sentiment is born from that passion and pride. So how does this sort of, combative slogan really relate to cloud native? Well, you need to look no further than Twitter and you'll see that, same passion in our community, passion for better or worse. Now, it's that passion that drives us. It can cause, Twitter feuds, it can cause burnout, but it can also create world-changing communities and globally transformative open source software. It's also that same passion that fuels our local communities. It is here where we often find a wealth of knowledge, people, and make long-term friendships. Jeff and I, we wouldn't be here today if it weren't for getting involved and helping run our local meetup with our other organizers, George Castro and Mario Loria. Orchestructure, our meetup, it wasn't the biggest one, only averaging, 30 to 35 people, but those same people came to just about every single one. we were lucky.
Hashtag blessed.
Once people attended, they kept showing up, and it became much more than a meetup. A lot of us, would get together outside of the meetup to do like old school LAN parties, hang out. We had a Slack channel for like daily chat where we could just sort of like bounce both technical and personal questions off each other. It was just like a really great community.
We could just check up on each other and make sure we were doing all right.
Yep. So with the pandemic has certainly hit events and meetups hard, and by no means is it over yet. But I think we're on the upswing and can, start to get together again. Nature is healing. Folks are returning to DevOps days, and we're seeing more, community or Kubernetes community days events pop up.
There are 6 KCD events, or Kubernetes community events, between now and the end of the year. And 8 are on the schedule between now and KubeCon EU next year. There are also around 270 cloud-native meetups listed on the CNCF community page. Now, some of these are dormant, but I encourage you to look, get involved. It only takes one person to roll a ball down a hill, and if that ball is stuck, maybe it needs a gentle nudge. But find your peers and try to get involved. So the title of this talk is CloudNative 101 Motor City Edition. And we had a couple of overt goals with the little time we were given. First, if we were able to walk off the stage and y'all chuckled, maybe learned something about Detroit, we consider it job's done. Besides analogies, we're both major believers that learning while having fun yields the best results. Look no further than the program chairs cosplaying, you understand. But even basic cloud-native concepts can be difficult to fully grasp when you're new. Second, Southeastern Michigan is amazing, and it should be celebrated. It should be showcased. It's often the butt of many jokes, and it really shouldn't be. But there was a third goal, and it wasn't just making people hungry with pictures of pizza and pop. In the least narcissistic way, it was meant to show you all a glimpse into our cloud-native journey. You've probably heard it multiple times, open source is made of people! But so often do we see the finished pizza in a box and not how the dough got slapped out or the sauce or toppings added. I am really starting to get hungry. But I can most assuredly say I would not be anywhere near close to where I am in life, physically, mentally, or emotionally, without many of the folks in this room. But most importantly, the person next to me. Even introverts need other people to achieve their full potential. So, this is Detroit.
This is Michigan.
This is our community, and everyone does have something to add and share. You may not be able to find your own Bob.
Or Jeff, but find, own, and share your culture. Make connections with people, and everyone will be better for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was awesome. Thank you so much. All right, so our next speaker is Stephen Augustus. Stephen is the head of open source at Cisco. Today, he's going to give you the clarity you need to observe, troubleshoot, and protect your cloud-native environments. Please welcome Stephen Augustus.
Hello, hello, KubeCon. So I want to talk to you today about how to find some clarity in this cloudy landscape. So we've been on the stage, Cisco's been on the stage a few times, and we've introduced in the past kind of what's become this suite of open source projects. So we call it Open Clarity. And in the past, we've done, so what is Open Clarity? It's security, it's observability, both for your running Kubernetes clusters, for APIs interacting between all of your applications. And OpenClarity.io, first up, API Clarity. Second up, Kube Clarity. What are these things? API Clarity is a cloud-native visibility tool for APIs. We use service meshes. The goal is to analyze API traffic, capture your risks, and mitigate them. Now for Kube Clarity is a tool for detection and management of software bills of material, SBOMs. Everyone needs an SBOM. You need multiple SBOMs. If you want SBOMs, you can get some SBOMs with kubeclarity. So in your running Kubernetes clusters, you can run kubeclarity in your CI/CD pipelines and kind of get a better idea of what's happening in those clusters and mitigate some of those risks. Now, what if I told you that there was a secret third thing? We love clarity. We love an opportunity to create a logo with a cute animal. So introducing this week, function clarity. We thought about some of the different areas that you need to approach with one, getting clarity around your running code, as well as understanding some of the risks within your environments. So function clarity is meant as a framework for signing and validating cloud functions, right? So artifacts code, image code that you're running, Lambda functions, what have you, different cloud providers. We got that. It's in the box, right? It's code integrity tool for serverless functions, leveraging, I'm sure you've heard talk about SigStore, Cosine, Recore, Fulcio, built on top of the SigStore policy controller. So that's going to allow users to sign their functions, validate them in cloud environments, and overall just bring some clarity to something that is a little bit more not as much focus is spent on serverless environments and the security of those environments. So that's what function clarity is here to do. I encourage you to check out the GitHub repo, go to openclarity.io, and for function clarity, it's openclarity/function clarity on GitHub. Now, reintroducing the Open Clarity umbrella, we've got API clarity, Kube clarity, function clarity. And if you want to learn more about each of these components, one, check out the Cisco microsite. That's etni.cisco.com/events/KubeCon22. We are at booth D3. If you have not had an opportunity to get a screen printed hoodie, you should check that out. And there's going to be an upcoming session for function clarity. It's called Code Integrity in Serverless Functions. That's Naor Shmuel, happening at 10:45. So come hang out with us, play some games, watch some talks at our booth, and yeah, I will see you later. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. All right, our next presenter is Alvin Estrada, who is joining us virtually. Alvin is a cloud architect at GuadaGeeks, and today he will share his experience helping a software factory company reach the goal of a DevOps culture. Please welcome Alvin Estrada.
Hi, everyone. We all have heard about big company success stories, right? How Microsoft implements machine learning in production with Kubeflow and DevOps, right? The Apple people and his journey to the cloud native, the seamless customer experience powered by Kubernetes at Walmart, and how David Shia almost gets fired from Spotify, right? But what about small companies in Central America? Is that even possible in this context? Was it already been done before? Well, let's take a look. But first, let's see what Central America is. Results that it is a geographic region between North and South America, conformed by 7 countries: Guatemala, Belize, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Panama, with a summarized GDP just below Colombia, and with English level low as most of the countries in Latin America, affecting the access to information and education. Companies in the area has the fame to have a permanent limit budget, all and a small tech department, big resistant to change, dusty app over dusty server, and if it's working, don't touch it, don't look at it, and don't even think at it because it can stop working philosophy. And there is a lot of comments like this coming from the community members. All that infrastructure, server, and development methodology, sadly, companies here at Guatemala are not ahead. But that had started to change, and today I want to share my story of how is it to bring DevOps to a software factory in Central America. My name is Alvin Estrada. I'm a speaker and organizer at Kubernetes Guatemala, a CNCF community group. On the last 12 years, I've seen how engineers here start moving to foreign countries and start working remotely for companies there. Even I spent good 5 years working remotely with a team on Netherlands. I've also collaborated with some companies in my country with his cloud adoption, and now I'm collaborating with one of the biggest companies in the region with his cloud adoption and DevOps journey. And this journey starts, of course, with a digital transformation. But this digital transformation is at the speed of light. As in 2020, in a matter of weeks, everything changed. Companies around the world was in a hurry to move their business to remote and online first. There was, of course, a challenge, having in mind that most of those companies had never built a proper e-commerce before. The necessity for engineers and experienced people increased. Local banks and retailers had to duplicate their capacity on online and mobile platforms. Teams and technology was of course not prepared for that. The necessity for a digital transformation was evident. Sadly,
Hi, Pradeep. How are you? How's KubeCon going for you? What have you enjoyed the most so far? Oh, excellent. Nice. Well, so do you know anything about Linode? What can we do to help answer any questions about careers at Linode and Akamai? Okay, yeah. Oh, excellent. Oh, excellent. Well, we have a number of openings across our engineering teams here at Linode and Akamai. We're hiring both in engineering, operations, sales. The sales guys told me last night to say we're hiring in sales. Yeah. How to start with beginner level of like signing up or what? Oh yeah, sure. On Linode's website, if you're using LKE, let me bring up we have a whole docs page. I'm gonna put it in the chat box in a second. Yep. Here we go. So.
Yeah, once you
Box to Kubernetes on Linode. There we go. Yeah, so there's posting this to the chat, but there's a number of docs that will walk you through, options to post up and do further things using LKE. Does that help, Pradeep? All right. Excellent. I'm sorry, what was the question? Oh, our journey towards Kubernetes and open source? Sure. So Linode created or released back in 2019 a managed Kubernetes offering. It had been incubating for quite some time in Linode. And Linode decided that not only a VM service was important, but wanted to offer containers as a service, or offer a ability for people to make use of new developments in rapidly developing containers and putting workloads, and deploying containers for rapid software development. And LKE was the child of that. And ever since then, my development team has been working on adding features to LKE. Some of the features we've released recently in the last couple of years, we've had node scaling, so you can set up the ability to, when your workload is under demand, to add more workers to your cluster and then be able to grow your cluster to handle the demand of whatever workload you're serving. What else are some interesting things? We have block storage for the clusters, so you can add persistent volumes or use persistent volumes to retain data in your clusters. Those are key features that you can use within Linode's LKE. I'm sorry, what was the question? I had trouble hearing the question.
You talking to me? Yeah. What do you want to know? I work as a manager in recruiting here. We focus on hiring and bringing new folks into Akamai and Linode. Well, we're looking for several Kubernetes engineers, software engineers, site reliability engineers, dev test engineers at all different levels. I've added in the chat our career site. And if you go to the career site and you put in hashtag KubeCon or hashtag Linode, you'll find roles specific to our cloud and compute initiatives. And then if you look at other roles on our website, you can find roles across Akamai in different areas of the company. But we certainly have a focus on looking for cloud native compute type folks right now. We're hiring tons of roles, all remote opportunities. Where are you located? Yeah, we've got an office in Bangalore. Yeah. Yeah, if you're interested in exploring roles, I would go to our website and take a look. We hire folks in India, we hire folks in EMEA and Krakow and Israel, and here in the U.S. we've got a couple different locations, but all offering remote work. So regardless of where you work, you'll certainly have opportunities to look at remote roles. Yeah. Yeah, in the other chat too, there's myself and Shirley's one of our senior recruiters. You know, if you have a resume and wanted to send it along, we could forward it to managers and also get you in touch with someone from our India office that might be able to help.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Well, we have another 10 minutes here. Anybody have any questions? You know, what's it like on the LKE team? Or, you know, can I help answer any questions about, you know, what the development life is like? Or okay, that's no problem. Sure. Sure. So experience with Kubernetes. I started using Kubernetes back in almost 3 years ago now. Akamai has been building on Kubernetes all the way, back, buddy, like 2019? Yeah, we've been hiring from Kubernetes since then. We've been using Kubernetes for hosting internal services. We've been using Kubernetes to actually, some of our production networks use Kubernetes to prevent denial of service attacks. And now with the Linode acquisition and, you know, with Linode now we're able to offer customers managed Kubernetes platforms so that they don't have to manage setting up the control plane. They don't have to manage when to upgrade or patch their Linux distributions. They don't have to manage if there's a CVE vulnerability in their stack. That's what Linode takes care of. And all they have to worry about is scaling the right size of workers for their clusters and building their applications.
Yeah. Well, I'm one of the recruiters at Akamai, and I'm fairly new. I joined in August, so it's been definitely less than like 6 months. But so far, it's been great. I really like the culture, the people, the company. There's a good reputation with Akamai just in all those years, and but yeah, I do see that they've been good about career growth or just like internal transfers, getting people different opportunities. But overall, it's been pretty good. It's nice to learn a completely different new industry too. So I came from public accounting, did mostly public accounting recruiting. And so this is still relatively new to me, but it's been great for, you know, the past like 3 months, just working with everyone and learning everything too. But yeah, if you do apply to one of our openings or several openings, we will look at your application. Each application or each opening is handled by a different recruiter. So you'll be having the application reviewed. We go through the process, but to give you an overview of the process, if you apply to one of our like Kubernetes role, for example, there's going to be initial screen with me. Then if all goes well, then it will be a interview with either Will or one of our other hiring managers for the CloudNative one. And then that will be about an hour or so for WebEx video. And then if all goes well there, then the last step would be a panel interview with some of our team members. So that would be about 4 individual sessions through WebEx video, about an hour each. So then after that, we make a decision of whether to extend an offer or not. So that would be the overall process if you were to apply to one of our Kubernetes roles. Could you repeat that question? Sorry, I didn't catch.
It probably depends on the role. So depending on the type of role you're applying to, usually managers and candidates will ask questions about your foundational knowledge of the role, how you interact with teams, what do you like doing? So that sort of, it's going to be around mostly, your understanding of the role and the technology used, and really just trying to make sure, it's a great fit for everyone. Yeah, glad we could help. Any other questions? Any other things? Feel free to ask. 5 minutes left. So I've got a nice little view out here the window from KubeCon. I'm looking into Canada right now, buddy.
Are you in Detroit?
I am.
My old company was there, CompuWare, and I went there a couple times. I only worked there about a year, but I was out there a couple times. But we went to the roof of some of the buildings, and you could see you could tell it used to be a pretty city, the architecture and all that kind of stuff. It's too bad it's all kind of blown out windows now, but very pretty, the buildings and the views to Canada, that side.
Yeah, and it has been pretty warm here too. I think we had one day where it finally dropped into the 40s, but
Really?
I've been walking around in t-shirts and polo shirts.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it's been a good trip. Yeah, we're doing both virtual and in person too. We have it's about half of our development team is here in person taking learning, and then the other half is back doing virtual sessions. So we've gotten to make good use of KubeCon and get to attend some of the keynotes and listen into many of the other sessions. Many of my team yesterday were in a session about learning about Heroku and trying to build, a Heroku-like service. It's pretty interesting.
A lot of people there, Will, in person?
Yeah, a lot. I don't know the exact numbers, but they said over 60% of the people here were new, that they had never been to a KubeCon before. People have been saying that this is more people than they saw last year at LA. Yeah, so it's definitely a lot of people. The booth, I think I got through like half the booths. There's just too many.
Yeah. A lot of people there looking to learn or looking for jobs, or
a lot of people here looking to learn, a lot of people looking to contribute to the different open source programs. There were a lot of sessions on, like, the first couple of days were a lot of key sessions on like this technology, getting people to use this technology, hearing about the business cases with this technology. I attended one the first day that was on it was how the telcos are using Kubernetes and using it to basically replace a lot of hardware that they had to, like embedded hardware for 5G.
Yeah.
So they're using, Kubernetes now as a platform to, packet filter and forward. So no longer using like NVFs for 5G. Yeah, that was a thing they said. What was it on the first day of the keynotes? I don't know if you've had a chance to go back and rewatch the first day of the keynotes. Yeah. Yep. The first day keynote, there was a person up there that had just learned Kubernetes in the last year, and they were talking about some of the sources that they used in learning Kubernetes, and really kind of expressing the same thing too, which is there's just lots of information out there, and there's a lot of places it's not clear how to start or what's the best way for you to start your journey. And they were then talking about how they started their journey and what some of the resources they used. One of it was a children's book, and I actually bought that children's book here, and I'm going to bring it back to my kids. But it's the first simple, book in dissecting what Kubernetes is.
You got something out of it.
Yeah.
But that was one of her resources she used in the presentation. She mentioned a couple of YouTube channels that she's watched.
Hey folks, I see we've got some people joining us. I am coming to you live from KubeCon, and I have some unfortunate news. We had a scheduling issue with our talent acquisition director, Chris Gibson. So he is not going to be able to join us. It may be that we have somebody else from the talent team who will pop in. But if not, I am happy to answer questions about DigitalOcean or careers at DigitalOcean. So I would love to hear your questions. I have been with DigitalOcean for about a year and 4 months. My name is Phoebe. I work on the product and programs team under marketing, and I manage open source programs at DigitalOcean. And as part of that, I manage our sponsorship of KubeCon, which is where I'm dialing in from, and as well as the Linux Foundation, our sponsorship of the Linux Foundation. So if you're familiar with Hacktoberfest, that's a program that I manage, as well as our open source credits for infrastructure program. So I am very happy to speak to what life at DO is like and answer questions. So you can please answer or ask questions in the chat here, and I'd be happy to answer them. And while we're waiting to see if anybody from the actual talent acquisition team can join us. If you haven't had a chance to visit careers@digitalocean.com, I highly recommend you check that out. That has all of our open positions available. So yes, I see that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 folks with us today. Martin and Praveen and Bhavesh and Pradeep and Kevin. So definitely feel free to ask me your questions. You can unmute or you can just drop your question in the chat.
Yeah, Hello, Funbi. Hi. Thank
Hi.
you very much for this. Actually, I'm a student. Currently, I'm in BTech fourth year. But from past 8 months, I was doing some stuff on containers and CI/CD pipelines. I
Mm-hmm.
have some have some experience, means some knowledge on Kubernetes and containers, containerization stuff, and CI/CD pipelines. But I want to start right now. I want to start some working experience. Can you
Mm-hmm.
suggest me how to apply for internships? Like I saw many of openings with seniority only, and SRE and DevOps. Many of openings are uh,
Yeah.
with experience only. So
Yeah.
can you tell
You
me
go.
how I can start with to gain some experience on SRE on DevOps like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So for positions like that where you're trying to become, more specialized and get into like a specific unit. And I think you said you were kind of heading in the SRE direction, the site reliability engineer direction. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So there's a variety of ways that you can kind of get into that niche. A lot of people start in support, which I know doesn't sound very glamorous. However, the interesting thing about support is that you have to deal with so many different kinds of problems that you are able to acquire a really deep knowledge of the technology and how to problem solve. And typically, you don't have to have much experience to start in support. They do all of the training in support, and then you kind of work your way up from there. And then with DigitalOcean right now, we are hiring a variety of senior positions because we're expanding these departments. And so, sort of the next round will be like once we get these senior positions filled, then we'll start looking to flesh out more of the hierarchy. So it may be that you'll be seeing some of those positions open up very soon. I think too, it's you have to be really good at Googling. So and talking to people. So definitely reach out to people in your community that already have that position and talk to them about their career arc. You can also go on LinkedIn and if you know somebody who's a site reliability engineer, you can go look at their LinkedIn and check out their history, their job history, and kind of follow how they got into the position that way. Um, and I I am actually a big fan of cold calling, which essentially means I reached out to somebody that I didn't know on LinkedIn and I asked them, "Hey, I'm really interested in the role that you have, and I'm curious how you got into this position, and I would love to learn more. Would you be willing to talk to me?" And most people are always really willing to chat with folks about how they got into their job. So those are a few of the ways that I think you can kind of start to dip your toes in and kind of work your way there.
Thank you very much. Thank you for it's much informative. Thank you. I
Yeah,
will try.
absolutely.
Thank you.
And if you know of any, a great way to meet people is through meetups. So I know a lot of folks who have networked their positions through meeting people at meetups. So and I know that certain communities are very active in the meetup world. So if you're interested in a specific technology like Kubernetes, if you can find a Kubernetes meetup near you and attend some of those meetups, introduce yourself to the speakers, introduce yourself to the organizer of the event, tell them you're interested in getting a job and start helping out. You can help out with the meetup and then you'll get to know people and that way you can help kind of network your way in.
Okay. How can I reach out to the speakers? Means through Slack or through
So
this
meetup,
platform?
yeah. So meetup, if you're trying to connect with a speaker of a meetup, Meetup does have a chat function, so you can reach out to them. You can find them on the Meetup page as the organizer of the event, and you can chat them through the Meetup platform. But in general, you can also just use LinkedIn. You can find them on LinkedIn and reach out to them that way as well.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Um,
Who else has questions?
Hello,
Hello.
hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Hi. Is that your name, Quincy? Is that I'm
Yep.
right?
Yep. You can call me Quincy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So my question is that recently I have started the CKAD exams. I am just preparing for that
Mm-hmm.
for Kubernetes and Dockers. I'm
Mm-hmm.
learning past from 2 to 3 months, and I have just started preparing for CKAD or CKA.
Okay.
So can you suggest me that uh, is that exam help me to go into the DevOps field or get the better work experience?
Absolutely. Certifications are a great way to get started. And particularly if you're already, doing a job, maybe you're in support and you start bringing on the certifications, you get the certifications, then you can level up into a different engineering role. So yeah, definitely certifications are a really great way to flesh out your resume and get started, leveling up in your career. As far as like next steps, like where to go with that, I think that most recruiters are looking for somebody who shows leadership. So if you can also, show that you are active in your community, like maybe you take on mentorship or you present on your knowledge at a meetup. Just showing that you're active in the community and you're helping other developers and you're a master of your expertise.
Uh, so I'm just preparing for that, and you just said that you should go into a meetups and just collaborate with the peoples uh, and ask for them to join. But let's say I am in India, okay?
Yep.
And frankly speaking, there is not a lot of meetups are going in our community or in our area, especially in DevOps field. There
Okay.
are other fields that software engineering or you can say open source community.
Mm-hmm.
They are organizing the meetups, but in DevOps field there are
Mm-hmm.
less meetups are going in our country or in our community. So how can I, in these situations, I can talk to the peoples and reach out them and make the community out of it?
Yeah, so there are a lot of online communities too. Are you near Bangalore or are you further away from there?
Yeah, I'm near Bangalore. Not too much,
Okay.
but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not. Well, one thing I do know is actually like, and just from the DigitalOcean perspective, that our one of our largest communities is in India. So like I do know that there are quite a few folks working in DevOps that do gather. The meetup community is strong, but it might be hard to find them. And so I think doing your Google research to try and find them. And if you're having trouble, like particularly right close in your region, then the next step is to look at virtual. And so trying to find online communities. Discord is becoming a really hot way for people to connect and work together. So you might look for a company that you feel like is in line with what you're looking for, and see if they have a Discord community that you can join. So for example, at DigitalOcean, we have a Hacktoberfest Discord community with about 58,000 people in there who help each other with the October challenge of Hacktoberfest. So that's a great way to meet people too. And then I think online forums, like there are certain websites that focus on particular technologies, and if you can find those and get connected that way, like I said, I have reached out to people I do not know and asked for help, and I'm always surprised at the kindness of people. And so I think that there's a good chance if you just reached out to, even if you just found somebody on LinkedIn, who's in the DevOps arena, and ask them, well, who do you connect with? How do you do you have a group that you belong to? I'd love to participate. And if you're interested in speaking, to practice your skills, most meetup groups are always hungry for content. They always need speakers. So don't be shy about asking the organizer if you could present, if that's something you're interested in. Not everybody is interested in public speaking, so.
Yeah. I'm interested in speaking, but a kind of a confident I'm finding right now that if I can work in this field for 1 hour or 6 months, so I can build my confidence to a little bit extent, and then I will be present myself better. I think in that way.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I wish
So
I had
can you
more.
tell me? Yeah. Go on.
Go
Please.
ahead. Oh, that's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So can you tell me about that in DevOps field, which sector or which there are the multiple fields in the DevOps too, that Kubernetes security, Kubernetes networking, that which fields I should have to pursue to it is easier to learn or easier for me to get into that.
Ooh, that's
Just for
that's a
example,
tough
that
question.
Kubernetes security or Kubernetes data. So in which field should we go first?
I think that generalized Kubernetes, like managed Kubernetes and understanding, clusters and database management, those are all a really great place to start. Security is definitely, it can be more technical. It can be, it definitely, security roles pay more. So that might be something, but it is considered to be more advanced. So I think, sort of generalizing, at least initially, and you'll learn as you go through your career what things really inspire you and make you feel good. And that's kind of where you should lean into, because when you're enjoying what you're doing, you'll really excel at it. So if there's an aspect of Kubernetes and developer operations that you really feel like you dig this aspect of it, lean into that.
Actually, I am pretty much interested in all kinds of tech field in this tech field. So last 2 years, I have also get into a full stack developer, and I'm also a competitive programmer on CodeSafe or Code Forces. So I'm little bit interested in all the fields, and I'm just digging into each and every field slow and steady. So
that's great. Yeah, I think that's kind of the way to do it. You'll find your way. Doors will open for you, and you will figure it out. But I know it is kind of hard. There's a bewildering number of different avenues you could take within developer operations.
Okay, what kind of role I can get from my competitive journey or full stack developer as a full stack developer in a DevOps or DevOps field?
So infrastructure is often a place where DevOps folks land. And so like a basic engineer, like you could be a networking engineer, you could be a DNS engineer, a data center engineer. I mean, there's all different kinds of engineering roles and niches within a company. You could, be working on the company's internal engineering, like for their own tools and platforms, or you could be working on an external product that the company is selling. So it really just depends on the company and what roles they have available. But it typically, though, they fall into engineering.
That's true. This stage I am right now in my developer field, that I have a I have pretty much about fear, a kind of fear that I am not able to find the right kind of person or right kind of how to approach the company
Hmm.
to get start with. An initial start I am finding in my career right now. I
Hmm.
know pretty, I know pretty much, but yeah, I'm finding that kind of first initial stage of getting into that. So how can we just start with that, or finding a people's or organizations that I made a resume of building personal projects and getting into the open source project. I have committed so much, not a lot of open source commits, but I did uh, pretty much. So I'm just building my resume and getting into a kind of to build my what we can say, a kind of to get into this
Yeah.
field.
So I think your question was, how do I find people to connect with? Is that how
Yeah, yeah,
am I? Yeah. So, well, one of the ways that I do it is by if there's an like a company that's interesting or a product that's interesting, I try and find out who is in that company or who is, I'll just Google that, like who's involved with their company. And then I'll go onto LinkedIn and I'll try and find them on LinkedIn and then message them and introduce myself. And I don't necessarily make the assumption that they want to link with me. I just want to ask them some questions. So, I'll just say, hey, I know we don't know each other, but I'm really interested in getting a role in this area, and I am really interested in your product or your company, and I'm just curious, what's involved with getting a role in this field, and I would love to chat with you. Would you be open to meeting with me? And then have like a video meeting with them if they're willing to do it, or a phone call. So, or an email exchange. It could be any of those things. And most people are actually pretty willing to connect
yeah.
and talk. So that's kind of how I would do it. And it's mainly you would have to know for yourself, like what company would you want to to learn about? Like what company would you or what technology would you want to learn about? So,
Okay. Mhm.
it looks like Akash has a question.
Yeah, thanks. Uh, can you provide me your Slack or any LinkedIn or Twitter handle so can I
Yeah,
reach to
absolutely. So
you?
it's
Yeah.
Quincy underscore Phoebe at Twitter.
Okay.
Yes, and I can definitely help put you in touch with some Purnima, one of the folks who's here with us at KubeCon is started out in support, is now a solutions architect in Kubernetes, um, and she would be a great person that I could connect you with.
Yeah, yeah. Please, you can provide me.
Yeah. So I'll put this in the chat just so folks can for Twitter.
Yeah.
If you want to tweet me, and then yeah, I can help make a connection for you. So
Yeah, yeah.
Akash, I'm sorry.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Yes.
Hi, Pete. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. I was quite skeptical to join this session. Past 3 days, I've been joining DigitalOcean, but it was almost about DigitalOcean. But everyone already knows. Okay, today one was like very like attractive, like DigitalOcean careers. So I had to like join this. Thanks for this session. Most
Sure.
of the questions we are already asked from it. So it's about careers. Okay. The same thing. Actually, I'm a developer myself. Okay. So I'm a mobile app developer. Okay. I
Hmm.
work with tech tools and technologies. Okay. I work for US Bank. So I wanted to ask, like, I'm quite much enthusiastic about cloud. Okay. So I've been learning cloud technologies and tools like Kubernetes, Docker, but I'm a newbie. Okay. So I'm like finding it quite hard to get into this community. Like to contribute to real source projects and real projects and getting to know people, and, getting opportunities for the same. So how can I create more opportunities? You told everything already, but like for me, like from my perspective, like how you would suggest that I should go on so that I can be a better position.
So I think the question you're asking is how can I increase my skills?
Skills I have, I think. Yeah, it's same question, but how can I improve my skills and find job opportunities along with?
Yeah. Well, so there's a variety of different things you can do. One, we've already talked about just a little bit, which is certifications. And I did just get the 5-minute warning, so I do want to let you know we just have about 5 minutes left. But certifications are a great way to add some sparkle to your resume. And they do give you a knowledge base that recruiters appreciate. They can see that you are working towards leveling up. Another way that you can do it is through taking on extra projects. So for example, one of the things that I think I think I can't. She might not be in the call with us anymore, but who I was speaking with last, she mentioned that she has been contributing to open source. So one of the things that you can do is to find a project. Maybe it's something that you're already using, like an open source project you're already using that is really, useful to you, is to contribute upstream back to that project. So going to their GitHub repo and doing some pull requests against it to help them improve that project. That shows a lot of initiative, and it can help you get practice and skills in terms of Git. And then another thing that you can do is you can go to meetups and speak at meetups and show off your knowledge and share your knowledge with others. Try and teach others. The more that you teach, the more that you will also learn. The process of having to put together a presentation on a subject, you have to have a good knowledge base in order to do that, and you'll solidify it by having to present it and teach it to others. And then another way that you can do it is through shared projects in a meetup group. So some meetup groups get together and they have projects that they work on over the course of a set period. So for example, I was part of a meetup group in Boulder that was like a React and JavaScript and meetup group. And so what we would do is we would create like a project, a specific project, like maybe it was like a recipe finding application. And so we will work on that together and build it together. So that gives you even more real world skills. You're working in a team. So those are some of the ways that I think that you can kind of bulk up your resume and make yourself, more desirable for employers. I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to have Hiran speak and ask their question because we just have 2 minutes left. So Hiran, do you want to ask your question?
Okay, Phoebe, one thing, just can you please share your Twitter link and
I'm sorry, what?
Twitter handle. Can you share in the chat box?
Oh yeah. Did it not go through? Oh yeah, I thought I put it into the chat. It's Quincy_Phoebe at twitter.com.
It's not there.
QUINCY _.
Yeah. Quincy _.
Quincy_Phoebe, PHOEBE.
Okay.
Bhavesh has a question. He said, yeah.
A lot.
Oh, you're welcome. Bhavesh has a question. Can we get mentorship without participating in programs like GOSC, LFX, but getting involved in open source project through Slack, mailing list? If yes, then how can I approach for the same? So yes, you can get involved in participating in open source projects. You don't have to be part of a a specific group to do that. You can just go directly to the project and work with the maintainer through email or Slack. You just have to find the project that you want to contribute to. So we have about 1 minute left. And I'd like to just kind of summarize by saying that if you are trying to break into a new role or like a new field and you're trying to build up your resume, the best places to do this are meetups, getting involved in Discord communities, watching videos, YouTube videos, trying to practice creating side projects that you can put on your resume, getting certifications, taking classes, and then presenting your work, mentoring others, contributing to open source projects. Those are all really great ways that you can help bulk up your resume.
Build with us, grow with us at DigitalOcean.
Hi folks, my name is Bikram Gupta and I'll be your host today. Thank you for joining. We really have an exciting topic and I'm looking forward to our discussion. I also have joining with me is Marco Morales. Marco is from SNCC. Really glad to have him here. We'll wait for a minute or so for the folks to trickle in and then we'll start with the formal introductions and go through the session. I know that folks are joining in, so would appreciate if you can kindly give some introduction about yourself, like your name and the place that you're joining from, and then
UST PACE, platform for accelerated cloud engineering. Cloud
to extract the data, remove the clutter and see everything that is most relevant to them on a single pane of glass view. Now, this need eventually ended up pushing us into developing the first module of PACE, which is referred to as UST PACE Illuminate, and eventually, other modules followed, and which came out of the need to do something about the problems that Illuminate was showing us. So, with that quick, brief introduction, I would now like to request Sid, my friend and colleague, to quickly start off with a quick demo of the product. Over to you, Sid.
Thank you, Atul. All right, I'm going to be sharing my screen now. Just give me 1 second here. Let me know if you're able to see the base window.
We can see that.
Awesome. Okay, thank you guys. Thanks for joining us. What a week it's been. I think quite an experience. I see that we're already on Friday, and so Halloween coming up. Let's get started with this last live office hour. And then you're always welcome to send us emails, send us direct messages, or leave a chat message. And you can also reach out to us on our contact details that you can see in the staff section within the booth. All right, so let's get started here. So what I'm showing you right now is the live-based platform that we've hosted on a Kubernetes cluster in AWS, especially for KubeCon. We have multiple environments that we use for development and our own production. So we actually use Pace for dog fooding. That means our own product gets developed using powerful features of Pace. So our development teams are already, continuously using it for themselves as well as building it. So with that said, what we have currently here is a set of integrations that we offer out of the box in Pace, and that has been classified into multiple tool types, or what we call it as tool class, where you have project management tools, you have source code management tools, you have CI/CD servers, code scan, test management, monitoring, ITSM, and others. We're also able to, because we're integrating with Jenkins, we're able to pull some very important reports from other testing suites, which Jenkins talk to directly. So we are kind of getting that data as well through Jenkins or other integrations that we have. Now, the reason we've gone ahead with this is because we're able to correlate data at a tool class level. So that gives you a tool agnostic benefit. So for example, if you're moving from Jira to ADO or GitLab to GitHub, your work or your team will not have to wait too long, as long as that integration is supported. You can easily move to that, or you can have multiple projects, one using, let's say, GitLab, Jira, and Jenkins, another one using, let's say, Jira, Bitbucket, and Atlassian Bamboo, right? So this kind of tool class based correlation at a tool class level, and then the ability to integrate that abstracted data with different tool classes to give you insights is where the power of Pace comes in, and we do that really well. And this also gives us the ability to add new integrations continuously. So just all these integrations that you see right here, like a year ago, it was just half of this, right? So that's the speed with which we are kind of building integrations. And these are not just connectors, these are deep integrations, fully customizable for your environments, as well as we have many integrations which are two-way integrations. So we're not just reading data, we're also able to write to the tool, right? So with that said, let me just jump into what's the benefit of this kind of an approach. And let me jump to Pace Illuminate. So USC Pace Illuminate is our enterprise transparency solution that builds on top of the data that's correlated and normalized and integrated within the tool, right? What we are able to do is we are able to cut out all the noise and be very selective in the most important metrics that matter the most for a agile organization that's doing software development, DevOps, and DevSecOps. And by doing that, we are helping all our users and customers to be able to quickly focus on the most important metrics and also be able to know what to do with it using the very detailed in-context help, which also adds insights and recommendations at every level. So it's not like you're running through multiple tools, not knowing what metrics connects with what other metrics. All of that heavy lifting has been done within the tool for you. And we have multiple widgets for each section of CI/CD, as well as a DevSecOps, right? So we have quality, we have agility, we have security compliance, right? So in quality, you basically get your defect management, you have open defects by age, and many other very detailed metrics. Again, I don't have enough time to jump into these, but what I will do is I will show you the power that we have with the drill downs that we've built in. So not only are you getting these insights on top, but also you're able to drill down at a level on the chart and try and see what that particular metric is all about, right? So yeah, it's taking a little bit of time. I think okay, right there. So when we able to do this, so you're in context, you're probably having a meeting with your team, or you're analyzing some data, you're connecting information from multiple sources within the single pane of glass view that we give you in Illuminate. But at the same time, you want to quickly be able to drill down to see the exact root cause of a problem or make a change in a particular area. So that granularity, as well as the aggregated high-level single pane of glass view, that makes it really easy and reduces a lot of effort and time required for finding out where the problems lie, what are the corrective actions we can take, and then make those change either as an advanced planning or within the sprint or release and take a course correction, right? So that really is, that makes it really powerful. But then we did not stop there, obviously. We went ahead and created persona-based dashboards. We understand that not everyone, plays at the application level or the project or product level. But there are Scrum teams that care more about their team data. There are Kanban teams. There are portfolio managers or the exec teams who care about the aggregated data. So we've built all of these at a persona-based level. So we've aggregated the data as well as we have kind of distributed it to give it to you in the most consumable possible format. However,
why don't you also talk a little bit about how our widgets are different from how the other widgets that you would see? So,
sorry, Atul, can't really hear you. I'm sorry.
Okay. Why don't we talk a little bit about how our widgets are different from some of the other widgets? So about the in-context help and some of the other things that we offer.
Yeah, in context help, I just went through it. So what I was jumping to right now is the alerting. So what I was getting to was you have all of these data points. You have all the nuanced persona-based dashboards. You have agility, quality, security, and delivery performance and operations, right? But then there is a problem even after this single pane of glass information is aggregated, correlated, and brought to you in this consumable format. The problem is you would know about something going wrong only when, yeah, Pradeep, you had a question.
Great question, Pradeep. Now, as we said, there's not any one specific problem that space can resolve. From a larger, wider perspective, there are multiple problems depending on the persona that you're referring to. The space can resolve because this is not just one single widget or one single dashboard. But if you look at it, the classification and the way the classification has been done, the way that it's been done is that it allows you to segregate widgets into your planning, your quality, your security, and so many other segments that you can create. So if you have a problem around quality, then you would like to see the widgets in quality, and take course correction out there where they are pulling in data from various tools that are supporting your quality endeavor. And so on and so similarly security, there are various integrations that we have with check marks and right down to the resolution level where the suggested tool, whatever resolution that you get from the tool will also be available out here for that particular vulnerability that has been cracked, and showcased out here. So does that answer your question? Okay, so let me try and take a different view of this. What we could do is that, maybe we could have a follow-up session with you right after this, where you could talk about a specific problem that you wanted solved, and we could show you exactly how that particular problem is solved. Does that work for you? I mean, we just have 15 minutes left. So, yeah, okay. So, Sid and I will reach out to you separately on DM, and we'll take it on from there, if that works for you. Yeah? Okay, great.
Okay, thank you, Atul.
Carry on.
So, right. So, yeah, there are multiple use cases that are being solved. Most importantly, the digital transformation, cloud transformation, agile transformation, all of these are required for people moving from a traditional way of developing software and doing DevOps to a cloud-based, cloud-native, as well as moving from waterfall or agile fall to true agile, right? And then it's a journey. It's not like a dead end that you're trying to reach. It's more of like you're maturing, you're improving your processes, you're being more agile, and taking advantage of all the services that cloud has to offer. So all of this takes a lot of iterative approach to improving. So all of these tools that we are integrating data from and bringing to you here in the single pane of glass view, it helps you to take data back decisions to course correct. It helps you to analyze historic data, obviously, and then also to take some proactive corrective actions as well, right? So to be able to improve the maturity, and as a result of improving that maturity, that's obviously not the only end goal. As a result, you are going to be able to serve your end users and customers much faster. You're going to be able to adapt to the changing market conditions or customer requirements much better, as well as you're going to be able to balance the speed and quality. Because if you want to go really fast, quality suffers, or vice versa, right? So, and then security, another huge thing. So security and compliance kind of becomes an afterthought in most of the software that's developed. And it's more of a, attestation from a security team. But here in the DevSecOps approach that we've taken, and obviously this comes with a lot of domain experience within our organization, all the best practices have been put in here in form of widgets and form of reports. So what we are able to do is help you shift left security, right? So you're in the software development cycle itself, you're getting very important and quick, almost real-time feedback to whatever your SDLC processes are doing, as well as you can also look at the operations and kind of understand that, okay, compared to the last release, when you made this recent release, was there a change in your incident, change in some parameters, and then how are the teams responding to it? And many other things that we are coming up with in terms of capacity utilization and DORA metrics and stuff like that, right? So, okay. So that's the eventual benefit.
Sorry, can we talk a little bit about one more? I just want to give one more use case.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that one of the problems. Let's say you are a PI manager or responsible for direct delivery. Okay. Now, what you would like to know is that exactly what exactly is your scope for whatever period that you choose it for. Okay. And within that scope, what are the things that are contributing to it? And how can you improve the health? So this is, for this particular dashboard becomes a planning and delivery dashboard for you. Now here you will be able to see by release and by, various filters like by team, by sprint, by release, so on and so forth. You will be able to see what is the exact, and also by feature. So you will be able to see what is the exact scope for your team or for the entire, set of teams that are under you, and you will be able to track it over a period of that particular period, whether it is a month, a quarter, or a PI, depending on what you're using, and you will be able to drive successful completion of that particular period or completion of the scope within that period. So that way it becomes a great, and in this particular case, one of the things that we've actively been able to achieve is to be able to showcase the entire life cycle, which of a particular issue, right down to the issue level, or you could also look at it from multiple issues level. So you would be able to see when a particular issue was created in any project management tool that you're using, And across various tools, when the first code was written, when the code was committed, and when the build was run, and when it get deployed, and so on, for each of these tools through certain nodes, you will be able to see what really happened with that particular issue. So you have a very macro view, and then you double click your way down to a particular problem, right down to the issue or the set of issues that is causing that particular scope to not get completed. And then you will be able to work on them, collaborate with the teams that are stuck, and then be able to complete that scope. So that's how this entire thing, this is just one of the use cases that you could look at. Similar use cases are available across various, other categories that you could think of. For it, like I said, security is one of them. If agility, whatever KPIs that you're assigned to agility, you could choose to create those KPIs and assign them with agility and do exactly the same thing that I just talked about, in this particular on this particular dashboard.
Yeah, perfect. So I was selecting actually a really long date range. So I think the data on this environment is not yet updated for those date ranges. So I faced some glitch, but that's a known issue, I think, because of the date of this test environment that we hosted just for KubeCon. Now, I wanted to add one more thing that
Aditya
what
has a quick
Atul
question.
mentioned.
Sorry, Aditya has a question.
Oh,
Yes,
is it?
Aditya,
Okay, sorry, I was
please.
not looking. I'm sorry.
Can I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, Aditya.
Is there any open source ongoing project that I can contribute to?
On this one, maybe not right now, but why don't we take it up? Why don't you connect with us on a separate, on a DM, and then we'd love to see, how we can leverage whatever contribution that you'd like to make. So let's take it on there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks,
Thank you,
Aditya.
Aditya.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect. So to add on to what Atul just mentioned, we also have a capability of creating custom dashboards. So this is a really powerful capability that comes within the platform. We have a whole widget library. Again, these are custom widgets. Some of them are custom widgets. Some are complex widgets. In addition to the standard delivery package that we offer out of the box, depends on what data is available within your tools, because not every company is looking at every tool, every metric. So we've kind of boiled down only the most important ones here in the standard delivery, but we have a huge library of widgets. Now, the great thing about these widgets is they are not like, they're not like you need to depend on us to edit them. If you're an advanced user, for example, you have a development team of your own and you understand, basics of database and all of the other things, we give you the ability to be able to edit the widgets, edit the parameters of the widget, create your own widget once you become really good at it. And we also created a query builder where we are abstracting out the data level, so you can actually, you don't need to know our entire data model, but you can simply use the query builder to build those queries and then use those queries in these widgets in what we're calling the widget constructor, and create your own widget for reports that may not have been covered for a particular use case in our standard delivery package or the library. So that is
Absolutely.
one great benefit that you do not get with any other tool that is already doing all of this stuff, plus giving you that advanced user capability, right? Now, let me
Absolutely.
jump quickly since we have just 7 minutes left. I just want to touch upon the alerts and notifications. So what I was saying was all of this stuff is great, but then it lives on a dashboard on a web portal or website. You may not be looking at it all the time. So we have this alerts and notification system, which is, every other tool has it. So what's the big deal here, right? The big deal is that you can create in context alerts. So what it means is all the data points are already collated, normalized, aggregated, and brought to you in an insight format, and you're building or creating an alert on top of that insight and not on top of your granular data from a monitoring tool, right? So what it also does is removes all the noise, helps you remove all the noise, so you're not bombarded with information overload and problems that come with it, like dashboard fatigue, for example. At the same time, it allows you to keep a tab on the most important metrics by using thresholding. So when I add an alert, to a particular widget, I can choose to set it by metrics or by events, and I can choose the metric. I can choose the operator less than equal to or more. I can add a value that suits my team or my use case, and then I can put the entire portfolio or application or team as a recipient or just to myself, right? So that sort of is a very advanced alerting mechanism, and you can receive alerts as email, as Slack and Teams, and we're going to be increasing the integrations to more collaboration tools as well, right? So this, and you can also create the frequency and put an alert text, for example, if there's an outage or something of that sort that everybody needs to know about. Attach files for a specific alert so that people know how to read that alert. For example, there might be people in your team who don't know what to do with it, right? So they can read that as well. So all of these great things come up at a top level. So you don't have to be logging into these dashboards on a daily basis. Just so that you don't miss out something. You can have an early warning system that things are trending low or high, and kind of take a corrective action, even if you haven't visited a particular widget in some time because you're busy on your day job. That could be development or whatever that is that you do, right? So that's the last thing on Illuminate. And let me just quickly jump on Conveyor. Now, Conveyor is our solution where we see the developer productivity problem in the industry, and almost everybody's trying to solve this. But the way we've solved it is really very different and amazing, because we not only are building this software, but we built this with a lot of industry experience on the ground. So we have solution domain expert teams who we consult with within USD and build the best practices, the industry standards, everything into um, Conveyor templates. So what are these templates? These templates are basically project templates. So if you have to start a new project, for example, it's a Spring Boot Angular tech stack. You can simply choose a template that has a tech stack that you want to start a new software project with. You can look at template components of this particular template. You can see if it has all the right kind of configurations and files and database and all of that. You can also confirm the source files, because these source files are built into the template, right? You can look at the pipelines, and like here we have pipeline information for all the microservices within that particular project, and then template workflows, which is basically a pipeline of pipelines. So you can have multiple pipelines firing in parallel or in series, and there can be stages for code promotion to a new environment. All of that stuff is built into a template. So what this helps you achieve is it helps you reduce the time to literally minutes and hours compared to weeks and months in getting the project started, so that your team or you as a developer can start writing business logic on day one, right? And it takes away all the heavy lifting, all the confusion, all the pitfalls and possible risks from a security and quality perspective, and lets you concentrate on what's most important and get the maximum output from your the software development team, right? And we did not stop there. Obviously, we kind of went ahead and created a library of these really powerful templates. And also we added GitOps and infrastructure as code at the lower level to these templates. So basically you can have a complex template that can set up your infrastructure. It can set up GitOps, and it can set up your software repository in your repos for that particular application project. It can set up the pipelines for each of those microservices or components, and then it can do the first pipeline run. And then because Conveyor is part of Pace, right, Illuminate and other great things within a project, which I'm going to show you here, are also configurable right out of the box on day one. So like if you want to add project management tools, you can simply select the tools that are configured. You can select the project that is there, and then you can just go ahead and connect that project to a project management tool. So now your entire SDLC process is set up on day one. So you can not only start coding into the new project on day one, but also monitor it, track it, report on it, as well as link and see your user stories or work items, how they are progressing as well for this particular project. And because it's all part of USD Pace, it kind of works with works very nicely when it all comes together from projects, Illuminate, and Conveyor. Plus, last but not the least, we have integration for Kubernetes namespaces for same cluster and other cluster. So we are able to give you a runtime as well. So when your project, if it has a deployment phase within that particular pipeline, you don't need to go outside of space. You can get it right here, right? So we have Argo CD support as well, and many other Terraform and stuff like that. So, okay, that's it
Yeah.
from my
Sid,
side.
just wanted to know, we're really short of time, just about 17 seconds left, and we know that, a platform has larger space, cannot be, concised into these 30 minutes. So we'd love to hear from you, and we'll set up a deep dive of demo once again. Thank you so much. See you again.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great weekend. Happy
US
Senior Solution Consultant at Ops level. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about how we are helping our customers progress along their service ownership journeys. The way that we see it and the way that a lot of our customers have been working with us is that we first need to understand what information about your service
It's a perfect world. Your company's software and infrastructure are running optimally. Life is good.
Until suddenly, you're interrupted. Your Slack feed is going crazy. It's a
live demo. It's the last day of KubeCon. Hopefully you had a good show this year. I'd like to give you a short demo of Zebrium. What we're about is applying machine learning to logs to automatically identify the root cause of any problems that you might be observing on your monitoring tools. And we're able to put the root cause via APIs directly into most of the popular monitoring tools in the market. In fact, the demo I'm going to show you will give you an idea of how this works. So imagine you're monitoring your application using Datadog. In this case, the actual application that's being monitored is an open source one called Sock Shop. It simulates a shopping website for socks. It's a popular demo app used by many observability vendors as well. You can download and run it using a Helm command yourself. Has about 24 microservices, web front end, ordering service, MongoDB backend, pretty typical Kubernetes app. Well, we hooked up this app to our Datadog monitoring tool, as well as New Relic and Elastic. And then we used a CNCF tool called Litmus, which is a chaos monkey, to introduce a problem at this time. So the idea here is, imagine you're an SRE or a frontline engineer or even a developer glancing at the dashboard for your application. You see a problem starting at this time. Clearly something happened. CPU suddenly dropped off all the way to 0. Network rate dropped off to 0. If you had been monitoring other key metrics, you would see the same thing. When you see this, normally you have a couple of actions. You can zoom in on the time frame, drill down, look around your dashboards, and see if there's something wrong with your infrastructure, your EC2 instances. Are you reaching some sort of resource saturation? You need to spin up more resources. If it's a trickier problem, you might switch to a tracing view of your application. If you are using traces, you might try to narrow down which microservices are impacted. But ultimately, a lot of the times, probably more than half the times, you will need to look at the log events to figure out why this problem is occurring. And this is where Zebrium comes into play. So when you hover your cursor over the leading edge of this problem, around here is when it started to go wrong. You'll notice there's a widget from Zebrium that shows an event. It's a root cause report right at the leading edge of that. Also, we notice, I'll drop a couple of the charts, that the anomaly count spiked right at that point. So it does appear Zebrium found something that matches the problem timeframe. If you scroll down, you'll see a root cause report summary from Zebrium that has an NLP summary, and it has some keywords and a link. I'll show you later, if you're interested, how you can place this in all the popular dashboards, just using a couple of setup steps. Basically, all you have to do is exchange API keys. And you can do the same thing in Elastic. The exact same environment is being monitored using Elastic. You'll notice the exact same drop-off happening here. And you'll notice a root cause report from Zebrium showed up there as well, with an NLP summary and some interesting keywords highlighted that an SRE might understand. And we can do the same thing in New Relic as well. So same drop-off, and you can see a report from Zebrium right below. So what happens if you do click on that detailed report? What will Zebrium show you? Well, in the time frame where the problem was occurring, which is roughly this, it's a few minutes, about 2 million log events were generated by this application. Not a massive number, but enough that it would be a bit of a pain to scan through logs from all the different log streams. Instead, we simplify a job. Zebrium has picked out 46 log events from 7 different services in that time frame, which the machine learning believes describe the timeline of the problem, including the root cause. It also picked out certain keywords such as network corruption, experiment, chaos, queue length, misconfig, exception. And it also summarized it using GPT-3 automatically. And the summary sort of gives you an idea of what was going on. Our machine learning thinks a chaos monkey was trying to create an order. This is close to what happened. A chaos monkey was in fact trying to break the environment while a traffic generator was trying to create orders. So let's take a closer look at the events. I mentioned we picked out 46 out of 2 million. The very first event that was picked out is the chaos engine. It's starting in this Kubernetes cluster. Notice it's just an info level event. There's no error, there's no warning, there's nothing wrong with this event, but it's unusual. And software problems almost always start with something unusual happening first, maybe a new deployment, a change in configuration, administrator does something, and more often than not, these are benign info or debug level events, but they lead to problems downstream. So our machine learning does a really good job of capturing rare events automatically, and then figuring out that these rare events are connected. So this one came from the events log stream, but shortly after that, a new service started running called Chaos Runner, and it started emitting some unusual events, which again, our machine learning picked up. And it figured out that these seem to be connected. They seem to be one pattern. Shortly after that, we could see a new pod starting called the network corruption pod. I mean, it's not rocket science to figure out what's going on here. The CNCF chaos tool is spinning up a particular chaos experiment called network corruption. Shortly after that, we can see the actual manifestation of the problem. If I can find it here. Here, if you look at this event, even the most skilled engineer or SRE would have a hard time spotting this innocent looking event because it doesn't even have a severity. It's not an error, but it is coming from the messages stream, and it's saying ETH0 caught a misconfig in the queue length. Again, it's not rocket science to figure out this is in fact what the chaos tool was doing to break the network in this environment. And within a few seconds after that, the ordering service and the front end service started complaining, started throwing up exceptions because the network is now broken. Again, nothing told our machine learning upfront to look for things like chaos or network corruption, or to look for these specific 7 services out of the 24 in this environment. It automatically figured out the rare ones, the rare events, figured out how they connect to the errors, and put them into one report. And then further, it picked out a few keywords that an SRE could glance at that are picked out from the rare and the bad events to give you an idea of what's going on in this cluster of 46 log events. It turns out this is a really accurate root cause. If you had manually scanned the logs using a log manager and copied and pasted log events one at a time, almost certainly the ones I showed you would be in there. You might pick out a few less, but the key ones I showed you would be in a root cause report. So the accuracy rate of our technology is extremely high. If there is a problem and the problem is in any way visible in the logs, there's a 95% chance we will pick up the right log events, put them in a report like this, summarize them using keywords, summarize them using GPT-3. The GPT-3 summary really works if this kind of problem is known in the public domain, because GPT-3, as you might know, is this massive neural network. It's trained on the public internet. So if a problem like this has been reported in Stack Exchange or Stack Overflow or a bug database for Kubernetes or Docker or MongoDB, and someone before you has already given it an English summary, then it's a very good chance this technology will find the match and pull back that English summary and show it to you. What happens after this is pretty straightforward. This problem has now been fingerprinted in our system. If you found this useful, you would accept it. I've already accepted it. What that means is you want to make sure this kind of problem is caught in the future if it happens again. And to make it useful, you can then add some notes, maybe a link to Jira. You can add a priority. You can add some output channels, such as you could add PagerDuty or Opsgenie or email or Slack. And now you've ensured not only will this problem be caught deterministically if it happens again, but any information, notes, summaries, links to Jira that you put in the first time will pop up in the alert wherever you configured it to go. Maybe it was PagerDuty. The next time this happens again, whoever's on call at that time will see all your findings and all your notes automatically. If, on the other hand, you looked at this and said, this problem, yeah, I understand what's happening here. It's not that important to me. You can ignore it or click the reject button. The problem has still been fingerprinted, but now our machine learning knows this kind of problem is not that important to the SRE team, and alerts for this will be suppressed in the future. They'll still be caught by the system. You can find these rejected alerts and go and change your alert preference. But by default, the behavior is to keep reading noise out of your alert feed and only show you the issues that you reacted positively to, meaning you found them important and useful. And these reports, as I was showing you earlier, can be placed in a Datadog dashboard or in a Elastic dashboard or AppD or Grafana or New Relic. Pretty much most of the popular monitoring tools we have support, and we can put these reports in there directly, so you don't have to change your workflows. So the idea is you see a problem, you see the root cause right below that, and an NLP summary of what the problem is likely about. All right, let me pause for a minute and see if there are questions that you'd like me to answer. Okay, if no one has questions right away, but later on you'd like to get a hold of us, I'd encourage you to go to zebrium.com. We allow 30-day free trials. All you have to do is go to the homepage, click the Get Started Free button. If you click Continue Sign Up, it'll ask you for your email, username, password. It'll create an account for you. And at that point, it'll give you a page like this, where it'll ask where are the logs sources, and do you want to connect the root cause reports into any of the observability tools. Also, it'll ask you, do you want to configure any notification channels such as email, Slack, Teams, Opsgenie, et cetera, et cetera. Just to give you an idea, if you are running a cloud-native application based on Kubernetes, the setup process is dead simple. All you have to do is copy and paste this Helm command into your Kubernetes environment. Everything else happens automatically. It will download a log collector from GitHub as a daemon set. It's based on a very common open source collector. You can actually go look at it on GitHub as well. It's very lightweight. It'll start identifying logs from all the pods, the hosts, the containers, plus the Kubernetes events, and start streaming them to the machine learning service. We recommend letting the machine learning train for 24 hours for the best results. But in fact, the example I showed you earlier didn't even wait that long. We let it train for only an hour or two before starting to create failures in that environment. So it'll catch problems within an hour or two. If something happens, you will see a root cause report. Just the noise level will be a bit higher for the first day while it's still learning the normal patterns of all the events in your environment. So if you found this at all interesting, please We welcome you to, or encourage you to go to our website, sign up, create a free trial account, and start testing maybe a staging or a demo environment. Or if you don't have permission to test in such an environment, I would encourage you to use HawkShop itself. There's a blog on our website that shows you how to use HawkShop as a demo app and then how to break it using a chaos tool. That itself might be an interesting exercise for you. And you can see a closed loop experiment. You can see the failure you created in your environment and whether or not Zebrium gave you a useful root cause report that actually solved the problem for you. Any questions at this point? One other option, if you're not sure if you want to do a demo account or do the work, you just want to ask questions, see a deeper dive into the technology, there's also a link on our website to book a demo, and that'll automatically create a Zoom session. And then you can talk to an engineer and get deeper into the technology as well. Okay, if there are no more questions, I'm going to pause the demo at this point, but I'll be around. You're welcome to chime in on the chat or use the contact options on the website to reach out to us. We also have a booth on the show floor. If you happen to be there in person, please do stop by.
It's a perfect world. Your company's software and infrastructure are running optimally. Life is good. Until suddenly, you're interrupted. Your Slack feed is going crazy. It's a P1. You can see the problem on your dashboard, but the root cause is not obvious. It's going to be a long night ahead, digging through logs to find the root cause. But now, those long nights are over. Introducing Zebrium. Our platform automatically finds the root cause from your logs and shows it on your monitor.
Now let's take a closer look at object storage. I'm sure you've heard of AWS S3, which is the object storage service on AWS and is one of the earliest and most popular services on AWS. Why is object storage popular for modern apps? Developers need to go fast when it comes to application deployment, and they want to use the self-service model that object storage offers. With object storage, developers can easily get the storage endpoint without having to go through a ticket-based mechanism for mount points. Standardization on AWS S3 as the de facto protocol accelerated the adoption of object storage. Object storage is distributed and scale out by design, making it a great fit for modern applications, which also tend to be distributed. Developers can easily scale storage with their application needs. Object storage is ideal for unstructured data such as video, photos, and logs, making it a good fit for a wide range of use cases. And why would you run object storage on-prem? Well, using public cloud services is like staying in a hotel. It's simple and flexible, but it can be expensive. We're seeing some customers move their workloads on-prem as a result. Next is data gravity. Moving applications and services to their data results in higher performance. Data sovereignty, due to security and compliance requirements, and data protection. Other than for modern app development, object storage can also be used as a backup target for traditional apps that have been in the customer's data center for a long time, such as Oracle, SQL Server, and others.
So K10 and Cloudian specifically are a perfect match to protect your modern application infrastructure and your applications and your data needs, right? What this actually means for you is the capability of doing a backup and recovery for modern applications specifically. Now, as you guys might know, object storage is the storage for cloud native applications. This is the storage of the cloud. That's where it was. That's where it started. What we're doing is bringing it in a hybrid context. S3 is the de facto standard of cloud storage, and Cloudian and Kasten seamlessly integrate using S3 APIs. Kasten K10 fully supports S3 and object storage as a target for the backup, and Cloudian offers exactly that, right? Now, Cloudian and Kasten support object lock, which is a way of implementing worm in cloud storage systems, right? And when object lock is enabled on the starting from the backup workload, the application and data backup are made immutable, which is nothing but they're completely tamper-proof for the duration specified by the user during the creation of the workload. Even if a hacker is able to penetrate your perimeter defense system, they will not be able to carry out any of the cryptographic ransomware attack, and your data is recoverable. In addition, Cloudian actually offers root lockout or root disable when shipped in worm mode, which means that even if the hacker is able to get privileged access, getting into administrator mode, they will not be able to decrypt, or they will not be able to delete your data, encrypt or be able to delete your data, which is what a ransomware attack is. So it's a complete lockout of ransomware as you may know it.
Right, let's get into the demo. Let's see how this all works. So enjoy. This is a demo of Cloudian and Kasten enterprise-grade Kubernetes protection, for everyone. Let's get right into it. And welcome to this demo of enterprise-grade Kubernetes protection with Kasten K10 and Cloudian. In this demo, we'll log into Cloudian to create a new bucket for use with Kasten K10 by Veeam. It's as easy as entering a new bucket name and enabling object lock. Object lock will allow us to create immutable object repositories for Kubernetes data protection. Clicking create and OK will create our bucket for use with Kasten K10 by Veeam. We just need to set a few options before we're ready to enable this bucket for Kasten. Click Properties, review some of your settings, and go to the Object Lock section of the properties. Here we want to enable compliance mode and a default retention period. And click Save. We're now ready for our setup of Kasten K10 by Veeam. Let's jump over to our Kasten K10 user interface. Here's the default interface for Kasten K10 by Veeam. When initially logging in, we'll enter our email address and our company name. Here in the Kasten K10 interface, you'll notice a few main cards: application, policies, usage, and reports. But the first thing we want to set up is our connection to the Cloudian object storage. Click Settings and Location Profiles. Location profiles are used as the target destination for data protection. Set your profile name, select S3 compatible, and enter your access key, secrets, endpoints, region, and bucket name. Select Enable Immutable Backups to enable object lock compatibility with Cloudian. Click Validate Bucket to check that everything's ready to go. And click Save Profile. We're now set up to create our first Kubernetes backup. Let's first install an application here that we can use to test our data protection with Cloudian. In this demo, we'll install a simple WordPress application. This WordPress application will create multiple pods and multiple persistent volume claims that we can protect. Let's check our WordPress installation here. As you can see, it automatically is discovered by Kasten K10 by Veeam. Clicking Details will show you all the details about the application, including its PVCs, its workload pods, and all the metadata and configuration options for the pod. Let's create some unique data inside our WordPress application so we can validate that our data protection is working. Let's create a quick post that will create some data in the database for WordPress. Okay, now that we have some unique data here, let's create a data protection policy. Here in Kasten K10 by Veeam, it's as simple as creating a new policy, setting the snapshot frequency, and then setting the export policy frequency out to our Cloudian object lock enabled bucket. Select our application, review the options, and click Create Policy. Our policy is now ready to run. Let's click Run Once to run this policy now. We can see the policy run action back in our dashboard. Clicking Activity will allow us to see the details of our currently running data protection job. As you can see, our data protection policy is now running, and in just a few seconds, we'll have our snapshot and our export out to our Cloudian object lock enabled bucket. If we go back to our dashboard and click Applications, we can now see that our WordPress application is compliant with our data protection policy. Now let's check the power of Cloudian object lock enabled technology. I'm logged in with super user access. And if I want to try to delete this bucket, you can see that the bucket is not able to be deleted normally because there's files here. If we try to manually delete the files, we'll also get an error that the action is unable to be performed, so access is denied. Even with super user access, the data cannot be removed, thus protecting against ransomware and insider threats. So let's go back to our Kasten K10 interface, and let's delete our WordPress application completely from our Kubernetes cluster. We'll do this so that we can test our recovery procedure to validate that we're able to completely recover the application. So off screen, I'll delete the application completely and the namespace. We should see the application disappear from the Kasten K10 interface when the delete is complete. And our application has been deleted. To recover the application, inside of Kasten K10, we can choose Filter by Status to see our removed applications. It shows up as a deleted application. We can choose our Cloudian recovery point to recover this application back to a namespace. Let's recreate the namespace, review the options, and click Restore. This will restore the entire application back to the original WordPress namespace from our Cloudian object lock enabled bucket. Just a few seconds, we should be able to watch the recovery complete in the Action Details window. As you can see, the WordPress application is now recovered and compliant with policies. Let's log back into our WordPress application and validate that our unique data is there And it is. Our Cloudian plus Kasten post is back. And that's it for our demo of enterprise-grade Kubernetes data protection with Kasten K10 and Cloudian.
Now let's take a closer look at object storage. I'm sure you've heard of AWS S3, which is the object storage service on AWS and is one of the earliest and most popular services.
What are you proud of this year? Anxious, I'm proud to be part of Vishesh family. What did you learn? Fear is temporary and regret is forever. What do you want to leave behind? I can't. What do you and take with you? Consistency toward all things. One, I wanted become good coder, so I can guide others. 2, at least C1 level English. No one can suppress my voice.